Now it's time to build the lock, and as you can see, there's a lot of parts to put together. It's a little complex, so we'll go through step by step. First of all, there are a few things that you still don't have here in your kit. There are two wooden dowels that have grooves in them, and these are 2 3/4 of an inch long. Cut 2 of them. Also, these little pins, these little tabs, there are 2 little ones and 1 larger one. Ask me, I've got a bag full of them. I just cut a ton of them out on the laser engraver. You're going to need 2 small ones and 1 big one. Once you've got all this assembled, we'll be able to start making the lock. So here's the first step. We're going to make what's called a rocker. It's a part that rocks along and extends and retracts your actual lock. Take one of your dowels, and that sets in right in there. Take one of these, and I'm going to flip it over. Just set it right on there. It's fairly tight. And what you want is that to be sticking out so that that goes down flush on the base and this is down tight. And what I'm doing is the slot goes down towards you. The slot goes down towards you. All right, so we're going to take a little 1/8 inch dowel, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue up here on this board so that I can dip from it a little at a time. So take some glue and rub it around the base of this. There we go. Doesn't need a ton. Take one of these little 3/8 thick that actually is cut to fit. That sits right on top of that. And we're going to do this again with the second one. There are 2 of these. We're going to put them together, glue them onto this dowel as well. All right, set that back in there. Slip this on, and those should go together. Just push it together for a few seconds, and then go ahead and clean up any extra. Now try not to get glue on everything else. Have a paper towel handy, you can wipe your hands off. Now, the other one goes on the same way, you just slip it down, except before I do that, there are 2 items that go in here. A 1-inch dowel, this is your 1 inch, there were 2 of those. I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue on the edge and stick that in the hole. And that should be flush. You want that nice and flat right there. You're going to do the same thing except with this little tab that looks like a T. That's going to go in like this and be flush there. So I'm going to put a little glue again on both sides of that. Dab a touch right there and then shove that in like so. So that should be pretty close to perfectly flush here on the end. And again, you want it flush on the edge of that. And give that a second to kind of set. So we'll just set that down and wipe that off. Good. So we'll give that a moment to set. This last piece just is going to slide down, and so you're going to need to glue. And this glue sets fast enough. I should be able to just have that, put that on. A little glue all the way around so they are not going to come apart. This is the part that moves. And also, of course, a little bit of glue on the end of each one of these. Good. Slide that on. It should be a little bit tight, but it should go on all right. And then go ahead and get that pushed into place. Flush again and push that into place. Nice and flush. And then squeeze that down so you actually see glue squeezing out. And then make it look good. Get a little bit of that glue out of there. And then that glue should set. So that is the rocker. I need that to be flush right there. And it will just go up and down with your locking mechanism right there. So it actually grabs like so and up and down. Next step, we're going to take the other dowel and glue it into that hole right there, flush with the bottom. So take a little bit more glue. It doesn't need a ton. Kind of line it in there a little bit. And it doesn't matter where this groove goes. Just put it in there And just clean a little bit of glue off. It's nice and tight. Good, that's it. Now we're going to do something with these tumblers. Now as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different holes cut in them. The whole reason for this is so that everybody's lock is going to be different. So I'm going to slip these on, but not only will you choose, everybody will choose different slots, but turning it upside down will also change it. So there are tons and tons and tons of different combination possibilities. So yours is going to be very unique. So this brings me to these little tabs. These two little ones are going to go in and be flush on the bottom. The big one is actually going to stick out the same on both sides. So we simply just need to put some glue on the bottom of this and on the side and push it through. Now I'm finding that these slots are a little bit oversized. They're a little bit too big for these. So I put a little extra glue on there and then just let it sit on the table to start drying a little bit. Do the same thing with another one. Let's just stick a little glue in one of these first. Put a little glue on the end and stick that in there. Again, flush with the bottom. There we go. So as you can see, flush on one side, sticking out on the top. So again, we leave that to sit there to set a little bit before I can put it together. And you do it again with this, the bigger tab. Just pick another hole and there's a little glue there. And this time we stick it all the way through like that. And because the hole is a little oversized, I'm going to just stick a little bit more glue on each side and kind of scrape that in. There. So as you can see, it does stick out about the same on both sides, and that is critical to this. Let's get rid of some of that extra glue. Then I'll just kind of lean this against the post to dry that way and take some of the glue off your fingers. Now, we're going to put these three together. So it's the larger one, not the one with the holes, but the larger washer. And we're going to glue all of these together to make one piece. So grab some glue, and I might even go do it with your finger if you want. And this just sits on top of there like that. And I really just push down for a few seconds. But you need to be absolutely sure that that is clear of glue. And the reason for that is it needs to sit on top of this and be able to turn freely. So I do not glue this to the post, but we'll get to that in a second. Then repeat. I'm just going to put a little more glue right here on the outside. And do the exact same thing. Glue that part on and just hold it on there. And there's a little glue squeeze out on the inside like mine has. I just use the other side of my stick here, the dry side, of course. And to check it, it needs to be able to fit on and turn freely. Okay, so that's pretty good. And we'll just set that aside. Get the glue off your fingers. Now, it's time to put these tumblers in. These are not glued on the post. In fact, once they go on, they should turn freely. Okay, and they do. They turn right around. I'm not pushing hard at all. You need to put this on so that that little nib is sticking up into it. Okay, there's one. We're going to put a spacer on, so that has to go on like that. And these are tight, so be careful while you're putting them on. But they're not glued in. And then just slowly bring it down. Now, I don't want it so tight that I can't actually turn it. So if I pushed it down a little too hard, kind of pull up on the edge of this a little. Just don't break it. There we go. Just a little bit, so that should turn. Very good. And this is nice and tight, which I like. There we go, just a little bit more. I don't want it to wobble too much. All right. Now, for the middle one, we take the one that has the two sticking out. Again, it doesn't matter which way you put it on. It won't make a difference. In fact, make it more random. So I just drop that down like that and do the same thing on this one. Again, that one is extremely tight. Just got to give it a push till it goes all the way on. There we go. And again, I don't want it super tight on that second one. As long as it turns, you're probably fine. Little pull here and there, but that's turning all right. And as you can see, it is turning the first one, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. And then do it one more time, except this time I need the nub to stick down. That's going to go on like that. And as I turn this, you can see that the top one grabs the second one, and the second one will grab the third one, and they eventually will all start turning. That is the combination for your lock. Now this part that we built earlier should sit right down on top. Now all of these, well, none of these are connected to this post, but this piece needs to be glued on to that top. So we simply get a little more glue, and again I'm going to use my finger because it's really important that this does not get glued onto the post. So I'm going to put a thinner amount of glue there, and then you just drop it on. And I'm just going to push down just a little until I can feel it grab on. But I like to keep turning to make sure that no glue is grabbing that post. It needs to turn freely. Now that this is on, seems to be turning all right. Just double check it so that everything turns freely. They're not stuck together. Now take a washer that has one of the holes in it and put a little glue on that. And then you're going to just stick it right on the top. There we go. And again, this should all turn freely. Make sure it doesn't get stuck. And again, it doesn't matter where this hole is. That won't make a bit of difference. But that should turn. And as time goes by, it will turn easier and easier if it's a bit stiff. That's not uncommon. Now, next step, take these two little tabs and you're going to glue them together. So take a little glue on the stick and just kind of move it together. Stick them together so they look really good and they're flat and straight. Remember, at first, they're going to want to move around on you. Stick them together, just count to 10, and then clean up a little bit of glue. And they're going to stick right in here like that. So I'm going to glue them in there as well. Got a little too much glue there on the stick here. And doesn't need a lot. But there's a lot of extra space in here. So go ahead and just stick it right there. Now all this does is it helps space the sides apart and helps line up something later. Okay, so that just kind of stays there. After that, it's time to start putting this whole thing together. The ramrod, or excuse me, this tumbler just kind of sits at the top with the dowel up top. It's going to line up with these holes eventually. We'll get to that. And then this locking rod will line up here. And I'll explain how that works in a second. Take this piece, put it in the hole, and it looks like it's going to fit just fine. So while I have the chance, I'm going to glue this side. I'm not going to glue the other side, just I need to make sure it fits and works first. But I can glue one side now. Put a little glue on those tabs. And push it in there. If you need to hit it with a hammer, go ahead. But one of your goals as well is that there's no gap right here. If you didn't route it out quite straight and there's some bumps, make sure to route that first. So I just push that in nice and tight. It's fairly flush with the other side. And then this just flips over and will go on like that. And I just need to line up. There we go, right there. And I will glue this side eventually, but let me show you how this is supposed to work first. When I turn this, you can see that all three of them spin. And that's your combination, if you will. So first, I'm going to do the far side. We line up that groove with the stick, with this stick. Now I turn the other way. That's the first number. Your second number, turn the opposite direction. Now that next one is lined up. And now I turn the opposite direction again, and now all of those spaces line up with this. As I turn, you can see that that activates the locking bar. Now we have no reference to figure out what number is what yet, but we will later. But once you determine that it works correctly, everything seems to flow just fine, you can go ahead and pull off the side and glue this the rest of the way on. And now you have your lock, and we'll be able to get it in your wood safe here in just a few minutes.